And all I remember is going to the final checkpoint, and then next thing I'm in a helicopter. Such a horrible feeling, failing selection. Because you think that, that's it. The regiment's good at drawing the strength out of an individual. Thoroughly enjoyed life with B Squadron. I didn't want it to be known that the SAS were in town. And then me and Billy decided to go down and have a chat with the Serbs. Got down there, they surrounded us, took our pistols, they took us prisoner. This guy span round, cocked his AK, and I got dragged in first for interrogation. So I volunteered to do 14 in. It was a bit of an eye-opener. I wasn't too impressed with MI5. After the regiment, I was lucky enough to get into corporate security for the next 22 years. I was looking after a BBC reporter in Belgrade who'd been threatened by the mafia. That told me never to do bodyguarding ever again. Once your time's up, and out the door you go.
This week on the Debrief then, 24 years service, 14 with B Squadron. That's not bad, is it? You got to say that, haven't you? Mick Hawkes, how are you, mate? You all right?
Yeah, good. Thanks for inviting me on.
No, thanks for coming on. Listen, I'm going to do the same with you as I've done with everybody else. I'm going to dive into your childhood and let's find out a little bit about Mick. How was little Mick?
Yeah, it's funny because I always wanted to be a professional footballer. And my father can I say this? He was a crapper. He was Royal Signals.
Screaming crapper.
Yeah. Yeah, so we ended up going to Germany and all that sort of thing, and I ended up going to 14 different schools, bizarrely.
Okay.
But played football for every one, which was a bonus, because once you get into the football crowd, you make friends and stuff like that. But you can imagine going to 14 different schools. It's actually quite difficult to make friends, if that makes sense. And
you sort of like build up the friendship and then boom, it's gone and you're off. You've got to do it all to start from scratch again.
Yeah, and it's funny because my mum and dad divorced when we were in Germany, so we ended up coming back to Lincolnshire, which is where my mother sort of came from. And we got to the point where I thought, right, what am I going to do now? And I actually got a trial with Lincoln City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Failed.
Where did you play?
Yeah, left back.
Okay.
So left back in the changing room.
Behind the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, but on the trial, we had two teams obviously, and I was in the stronger side.
Yeah.
So we were doing all the attacking, so there wasn't much emphasis on me defending.
Yeah.
So they didn't notice me at all and never got picked. So I walked away from there pretty disheartened because that's all I ever wanted to do.
Mm.
So the options were, bear in mind you're living in Lincolnshire, so, being a farmer, being a bricklayer or a mechanic, I suppose, or joining the Royal Air Force, which is just full of them. So I went down to Grimsby and thought, I'll join the military. And bizarrely, there was a big burly paratrooper sat in the Grimsby office with this big picture of people jumping out of aeroplanes behind him, and that was it.
Have some of that?
Yeah, I'll join that. So 1975, at 16 years of age, off I went down to Aldershot to join Junior Parachute Regiment.
And how did that go?
Yeah, good. I tell you what was bizarre. I have never, ever finished a cross-country run while I was at school because I wasn't interested.
No.
I used to carry a ball and, play football. So they had, when we first got together down at Aldershot in Brannan Barracks, we had a big cross-country run, and I came second. And I just thought, where the hell's that come from? I wish I'd set my heart on cross country and that lot. But found out I was a bit of a natural runner, I suppose. And thoroughly enjoyed it. But I went off and joined the gymnastic platoon. And the reason being is they toured the country, doing gym shows and stuff like that. And it's 1975, we did the FA Cup final, Southampton Man United.
Southampton won 1-0.
Yeah, absolutely.
And United fans are still claiming it was offside. Alex Stepney, shut your mouth. I thought I'm a Southampton fan, so I know that one inside out.
Yeah, well, being a closet Leicester fan, Peter Rodriguez was a captain.
That's right. Yeah.
And bizarrely, that's the last time the Queen actually handed over the
trophy. Yeah, that's
absolutely.
right.
Bobby Stokes, the scorer.
Bobby Stokes.
Remember it well.
Yeah. He's dead now, Bobby Stokes. He ended up behind a chip shop in Portsmouth, believe it or not. And piled in years ago, but legend in Southampton.
Yeah, I think Man United hated us because we also did a show at Lincoln, not Lincoln, at Ipswich Town, and Ipswich won 1-0.
You're following them around, jinxing them.
Anyway, so finished all doing that, and then we went into recruit training, and because you'd done quite a lot with juniors, you ended up going in about week 5 of recruit training.
Okay.
So enjoyed it. Got through P Company, got to about week 14, and we did a run out on Hankley Common, and it was just a sort of normal 10-mile sort of run but messing about type stuff. And we were on top of a tank burn, and one of the instructors said, right, I want everyone to jump off and do what you think is a para roll. And I jumped off, and all I heard was a snap. And my ankle had been snapped pretty badly. So, and we had no ambulance support then.
No,
so,
walk it off, son.
Yeah. so it was literally carried by the rest of the lads to Cambridge Military Hospital.
Yeah.
And they manipulated it to put it in place initially, then put it in a cast for 3 weeks. And then when the cast came off, they re-x-rayed it and then said, listen, it hasn't knitted as well as we thought it would. So we're going to have to pin you. So they pinned the ankle, which then put me back about another 6 months. And then when I came out and went back to recruit training, I was actually called into the office because there was a medical doctor there, and he said, listen, you can't parachute because of your ankle. So here's your options. And it was to go off and I think green jackets and an infantry unit, basically.
Yeah.
But you probably know the paras better than anyone. But I was indoctrinated. It was parachute regiment or nothing.
That's what you wanted to do, and that was
absolutely. So I made the mistake really of leaving the military.
Yeah.
And I was out less than 6 months. Realised that I'd made a big mistake.
Yeah.
Went back to Grimsby, the recruiting centre, and they said, listen, you obviously, fit lad, blah, 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 but you can't parachute. Have you thought about joining a commando unit? And I thought, well, no, tell me a bit more. And they said, well, in the army, there's two commando units, 2-9 Commando Royal Artillery, or 5-9 Commando engineers, so artillery. Because my father was attached to artillery units.
Okay.
One of the reasons that I was put off joining the military initially was in Germany at the time. My father was attached to an organisation called 40 Field Regiment. Now, they've been in Gütersloh for 22 years.
Wow.
Hardcore drinkers.
I can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was no... Watching these, and they're quite big lads, quite rotund, young, but quite rotund, alcoholically rotund, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there was no inspiration there at all, which is why I then carried on with that. I want to be a footballer, nothing else.
Yeah.
And it was only, that paratrooper in the office that had and I thought, actually, that's inspired me more than what my father did.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, and really that's the only reason that I joined up. Father being 22 years in the military, no inkling whatsoever to follow in his footsteps, bizarrely.
Yeah.
So so it took that. So 6 months out, I then rejoined. Went to 2-9 Commando.
Did you join straight with 2-9 Commando, or did you have to go to the normal unit first?
Yeah, 40 Field Regiment.
There you go. Get your drinking legs on.
Yeah, absolutely. So what it was I got, when I went through, a bit of a cheat really, because I got best recruit, best shot, and best gym, but I'd only been out the paras sort of less than just over 6 months, so it was a bit,
and still keen and
Yeah.
right up for it, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But I actually felt as if I'd cheated my way and got these awards because,
Yeah, these
everyone
other
else...
lads have gone from a standing
absolutely.
start.
But they, they said, listen, you've earned it, so, take it. So they then said, listen, there's only one place available for 2-9. And it went to an individual who was pretty unfit, struggled really in training, but his brother was in 2-9, so he
Claimed him.
Yeah, so he got the slot. So they said, right, where do you want to go? And I went, the only artillery unit I know is 45th Regiment because my father was attached to him. So off I went. Off I went to Germany.
Gutterslow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I ended up in 137 Battery, which was so you can imagine the alcoholic regiment, and I went to the alcoholic battery of the alcoholic regiment.
That was like, yeah, you must have been, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, day one, so the first night I was there, I was put in a 4-man room, and everyone was out. And now I didn't realise at the time that the battery bar was below the accommodation, so everyone was getting shit-faced. And this was on a Tuesday, literally a Tuesday night. Everyone was getting shit-faced. I hadn't even got changed out of their because
just straight on it.
Straight on it, yeah, absolutely. So I was in bed and probably woke up about 2 o'clock in the morning to this sound of water dripping, and it was the guy opposite me swamping his bed. If that makes sense. Now I kid you not, 7 o'clock in the morning, jumped up, introduced myself. Hi, I'm the new guy. Went for a shower, came back, and the guy that had swamped his bed was sat on his bed drinking a can of Tennant's.
No way, that's proper. That's the strong stuff, I know, isn't it? That
yeah, absolutely.
Super.
But I'll tell you what, it was a bit of an eye opener, and I thought, that's a bit of a shock to the system, this one.
Yeah.
But that was classed as norm, if that makes sense.
Wow.
So I went off straight away. I joined the cross-country team, the athletics team, the football team, and bizarrely, the tug-of-war team, because 45th Regiment, although quite alcoholic, they had an absolute fantastic tug-of-war team, and that was all due to...
Well, the average weight of a bloke's 20 stone.
And they actually put me in the catchweight team because I didn't have any front teeth. They said, look, mate, you look really ugly, so you would be perfect on the front of the rope, if that makes sense. So we ended up pulling for the British Army and everything.
Wow.
We did a lot of touring. The training was phenomenal, running around a 400-metre track with 2 bricks in your hand just to get your
grip.
Absolutely.
Get your grip up.
And then the coach, quite a sadistic individual actually, but he because he lived in the gym was his sort of palace.
Yeah.
But he had all these ropes on, the gym bars that you used to have, the wall bars. Yeah. So
used to pull out and clip them in.
Yeah. So about 2 foot up, he would have a length of rope, tug-of-war rope, tied on. So he would make the whole team, put your feet against the wall, and you had to lay out on the rope so that your arms were at full stretch. And the first person that fell off got absolutely beasted to hell.
Yeah.
So you just didn't want to be the first one. Once one went, everyone just collapsed. And it was, honestly, for an unfit organisation, their tug-of-war team was pretty shit up, to be honest.
Would they still drink it? Do they still have a...
No, these were dedicated individuals.
Yeah, so they
absolutely.
Sort of like
they screwed
left
with that.
In Gutterslow.
Yeah. Well, it's the same as the athletics team. I ended up doing 5,000 metres. Classic story. So I'd literally been in 137 Battery about a month, and we were just going into the summer season, and we had the inter-battery athletics event, and the very first event was the 5,000 metres. So there was me and another lad who was quite keen. I came first, he came second, so we had maximum points. They were the only points. I kid you not, there was people climbing over hurdles, fairly tipsy and stuff like that. And it was honest, it was just a big shock to the system. And I just thought, I need to get away from this.
So how long before you went and got Commando then? Because you must have been itching to go Commando after all that, and you're thinking, right, I've just got to get down to 10.
Yeah, absolutely. So
because they're a great unit, by the way, and I've got some great friends as we speak. I've got great friends.
Yeah,
there.
I think after about 6 months, the unit went away on exercise, and I was doing a cross country thing. So they went away for 2 weeks, and before I went down to do the cross country, I filled out my form and it got accepted.
Yeah.
So it was all done behind the battery's back, if that makes sense. So by the time they came back off their exercise, that was me. I'm out of there.
See you later.
I was gone, and I was quite happy for it. I had some really good times with 40th Regiment, but it wasn't for me as a young lad, fairly keen and everything else. So I got the plane over to ended up in Plymouth. Had a cold wintry night. Ended up at the barracks there, the Royal Citadel.
The Citadel, that's right.
Yeah, and it was funny. It was just again a bit of a shock to the system, because you went from drinking alcohol to running and getting beasted. Pretty hardcore, to be honest. The training, fantastic bunch of blokes. So we did the beat up. The actual beat up at the Royal Citadel was actually harder than the Commando course, because they wanted people not to let 2-9 down when they,
of course,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, got that, yeah, totally.
So you got absolutely battered and beasted for 3 weeks, and then the fit lads got picked at right. You're going to represent 2-9, and off you go to the Royal. Off you go down to do the All Arms course. Yeah.
How did you find that?
Yeah, well, I say what was bizarre was we all got told that everybody that was going to pass was going to go to 7-9 battery, and they were going to Belize.
Right.
And I wanted to go to 7 battery because I knew they were going to Northern Ireland. So when everyone was called forward to go, I feigned sick and, I played on my ankle. Oh, my ankle's gone. And I think they knew the score, because they just said, listen, you do realise you've got to do the whole thing again. And I went, yeah, I don't mind, because, I'm going to end up going where I want to go, if that makes sense. So off they went. I got left behind to wait for the next course, the next beat-up course to start. Got through that quite easily. Ended up doing the Commando course and actually, when I compare the Commando course to P Company, I actually thought, because there's a big difference, and what people don't understand is when you're a young kid of 16, 17, your body is quite still immature.
Yeah, it's not got man muscles on. Some have, some haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually found P Company a lot harder than the Commando course.
Yeah.
And it was only the fact of, a year later or 18 months later, I think it was, that all of a sudden your body's grown and you've got a bit more mature. And it's no slant on the Commandos compared to the Paras. It's just the fact that, people's bodies changes and you just feel a bit. So I flew through the Commando course, I suppose. And at the end of it, the 3 of us got what we wanted, which was up to 7 battery. Now, at the time, 7 battery were the black sheep battery, because we were in Arbroath, Scotland.
Yeah.
And every normal person wanted to stay down in Plymouth.
Way out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So off we went.
And Plymouth's a great place as well. You know what I mean?
Quite bizarrely, at the time when I ended up doing selection, the only people that used to pass selection from 2-9 were guys from 7 battery or 148 battery.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Because
148 battery were doing a really good job anyway, weren't they? I mean, that was sort of another level up, wasn't it? 148.
Yeah, absolutely, and purely because of the job that they were doing, which was second to none, really. But I for me, it was just the thought that I wanted to go to Northern Ireland, as a young soldier.
Yeah.
What
years was this?
So
late 70s.
It was
early 80s.
Late 70s, early 80s, and it was when. It was just after 2-para had the Warren Point issue.
That's right.
Because that happened when I was in Germany.
Yeah.
And then I went over. So they were on a 2-year tour in South Omar, So we went out. It's probably 1980, to be honest. That we went over. So at the time in South Omar, you had 2 para, 4-1. It was before they went into suspended animation, Royal Marines.
Yeah.
Because as soon as they got back from that tour, they got put into suspended animation. So you had F Company that had Crossmaglen, and we ended up doing Besbrook, and then hopping down to Newton Hamilton, and just doing the normal stuff. But it was a great tour. No incidents at all. The decent troops, I suppose, in South Omar just had the province wrapped up really, and so there was no on our 4.5 months tour. We had no incident at all.
Had the lid well and truly clamped down on them.
Yeah, absolutely. But I tell you what, Northern Ireland gave me a bit of a, because everything was against Catholics at the time, and you know, Catholics were bad people. And it wasn't until later on when I did the undercover stuff in Northern Ireland that you realise actually, you know, 90% of the Catholics are actually decent people.
Well, I've said this before. You know, if you looked at these big estates in Londonderry and all that sort, they're not all scum. They can't always. There's a few. You know what I mean? And they're the ones that you see, and they're the ones that are driving all this nonsense. But the average person just wants a normal life, don't they? Do you know what I mean?
I class Belfast now as probably one of the nicest, friendliest places.
I've just been over this year. I've been over twice this
year.
Great place. Love it.
There's some bad places in Belfast, believe you me, as you're aware. But generally, it's actually quite a friendly place.
Yeah, no, lovely. And you know what? In the city centre, nobody even knows who anybody is anymore, really. Do you know what I mean? To a point, if you did a bit of digging, you'd probably find out this, that, and the other. But no one seems to care anymore, do they?
Bizarrely, doing the undercover stuff, we used to go and relax, we used to go without weapons. And the reason being is carrying a weapon in a pub, in a bar, causes more dramas because you're getting searched when you go in.
Yeah. And
trying to explain that. So it was easier. So we just had one person outside, designated driver.
That's it, yeah, on Shark Watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone else getting shit-faced, if that makes sense. But yeah, no, it was bizarre. So, yeah, got a 2.9 and had a fantastic time. So we did Northern Ireland, and we used to do Norway every year, which is why I ended up going to Mountain Troop.
Yeah.
So we did Norway every year, but then obviously 2nd of April, quite a few years ago, we got the call for the Falklands.
Okay.
Which was quite interesting because I ended up when I first joined 40 Field Regiment, because I was a fit lad, they put me on the OP straight away. So when I joined 7 Battery, they said, right, what did you do in your other unit? I went OPs. They went, oh, we've got a place open here. You can go straight on the OPs, which was actually quite lucky because normally people have to earn the.
Yeah, it's an alley place to be, and that's what you want, isn't it? That's it. It's soldiering, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So we ended up going on the submersible all the way down to so far down. Stopped off at Ascension Island, and some bright spark said, right, we'll jump off now and just do a quick 10-miler around Ascension Island. But when you've been on ship, your feet they've gone soft.
Yeah.
Because you're wearing trainers and stuff like that. So doing a 10-miler, so everyone's feet was pretty raw. Then for some bizarre reason, 3 para after 4-5 had done their run round, decided that they wanted to do a 10-miler, but they wanted artillery support. They wanted OPs to go round with them, and for some reason we got volunteered. So 2 days later we were doing it again, but our feet were absolutely
really.
And where the Greenberry didn't go down too well because obviously 3 para were trying to.
Yeah. That must have caused a little bit of a.
Yeah, absolutely. but it was good because it got you off a boat and it got you tabbing and yomping us. So we did a yomp on the Monday and a
tab on the Friday.
And unfortunately, the tab was a lot quicker.
So you got down south eventually.
Yeah, so we cross-decked over because we were going down and we were joining up with 4-5, which was great for us because 7 Battery were actually attached to 4-5 in Arbroath.
Okay.
So we were together and we knew most of the blokes anyway. So I was in the OP party that went to Yankee Company, attached to Yankee Company. And we did the tab across, or as 4-5 call it, the yomp across. But we did the tab across with full weight, and unfortunately my ankle started going a bit scabby, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So by the time we got to Mount Kent, one of the guys said, "Mate, you know, you better go get that strapped up, like, you know." So I went down to the 4-5 medical place to get it strapped up, and there was again an overzealous in Rupert medical guy said, "Right, I want you to go back now and get all your kit. I'm going to send you out to the Uganda." And I was like, "Hold on, I've just tabbed all this way."
Yeah.
We're just
And now
about
you're
to do
gonna-
the
now
battle.
You're going to hoik me back again.
So I ignored him, completely ignored him. And anyway, so we're literally dug in on Mount Kent. And all of a sudden, there was a guy, you know, using his binos. He went, "Mick, there's a medical guy coming up the hill towards you." And I was like, "That what?" Oh, you know, I said, "Oh, right." And it's this medical guy. Anyway, he came up and gave me a right old bollocking for ignoring him, ignoring his order, and demanded that I grab my kit and go and follow him. Thankfully, the battery commander was stood behind me. And I sort of pleaded with him saying, "You know, I can't get this far and then, you know, go back." And he literally he overrode the medical guy and said, "Listen, you know, his ankles, it's all strapped up. He's good to go. He's happy to go. We'll leave it at that, like, you know." So it was great because, you know, I'm not a big fan of people going sick in a war zone, if that makes sense. And you know, we did have someone go sick with shin splints, and I just thought that was a cop out. You know,
Well,
we're in a war zone.
You wouldn't. It's you know, it's a.
I mean, you know, it's a one
Yeah,
time.
I mean, I wasn't there, I wasn't him, but
Yeah.
for me, do you know what I mean? You'd be thinking, hang on a minute, like yourself, you'd be thinking, no,
Yeah,
you can get this,
No,
you can get this
absolutely.
strapped. You know, there was a point on when I was on selection when we retina went, and the doctor said you're gonna have to come off,
Yeah.
and the training officer went, "Do you want to carry on? Or do you know what I mean? Do you want a rat base? No, I don't. I'll carry on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, off you go then, son. Do you know what I mean?
It's that's the mentality that and actually it's probably that mentality in the Falklands that I realised then that I needed to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So
Did you see anything of the troops while you were in the Falklands? Did you see anything of the SF lads?
nope, nope. They were on, although they were on Mount Kent when the Sem battery got moved forward. They were still doing their battle actually.
Yeah.
So they brought the guns in, but we were tabbing with 4-5, so we were going around the back end of it. So the lad on the guns caught up with 2-2, but not us. And I must admit, I highly impressed with 4-5. You know, they very professional unit. There was a young Rupert who ended up in the regiment, who was leading recce troop, and I was just remember being in a basher with him, doing watch on Mount Kent, and I thought he was just a Tom because he looked a young, fresh-faced, you know, chatting away. And then this old crusty old guy came out from 4-5 recce, started talking to him and called him boss, and I'm like that. Boss, he's a roofer. You know? But he actually got shot and ended up with an MC.
Wow.
Good lad. And again, he came across, did really well, and actually stayed because normally the Ruperts sort of bog off after 2 years.
Yes, a couple of years and then go somewhere else and then.
Yeah, because he was a Royal Marine, he decided that he didn't want to go back to being normal Marines. So the regiment just found him different jobs.
Yeah,
So he just bound. So he stayed as the same same rank.
Yeah.
But he loved it, you know, and that's testament really to, you know, putting job satisfaction above career.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
I think I've always tried to do that. Do you know what I mean? I think it's because it's not, if you're not enjoying it or you're not getting any satisfaction out of it, you've got to get out of it, haven't you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember someone telling me very early on in my career, if you find a job that you like, you won't go to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was me. And I was the same as you. I'd have loved to play football for England, but I was shit. Do you know what I mean? So it never happened. Do you know what I mean? But I did like this, and I was all right at it, so that's what I carried on doing. Do you know what I mean? So when did you decide you were going to go for selection? Did you after the Falklands when you got back? Did you?
It was, and I hate to be critical, but I got back from the Falklands and I just thought, if we do another war, would I like to be in this environment? And the answer was no, to be honest. One, because I'm not a big fan of Ruperts. Although that Rupert did save my backside by not sending me down there. But yeah, so it was just after the Falklands that I thought, yeah, I think I need to move on really. But it took about another 4 years before I sort of went off and did it, and it was 86. And I don't know if you heard, but 86 was the worst weather to do selection in the winter, because it's the first time ever that they cancelled test week. And so we got to test week, got called into the gymnasium and got told that they were cancelling test week, and we were just going to do weapon training and stuff like that.
Until the weather righted itself.
So at the end of the week, the weather hadn't improved at all. It was still pretty shitty, really. So they said, listen, we're just going to go for it. So we did the first one, the Black Mountains, no problem with that. Elan Valley, the second one up, and I was unlucky. I was first off the vehicle. So jumped off the vehicle straight down to your nuts in snow.
Elan Valley's just horrendous.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's horrendous anyway, isn't it?
So off I set, and really bizarre thing. So off we went, and after, I think it was about the fourth checkpoint, but the training major was there, who ex-2 para guy. He said, listen, Hawksy, step off and let someone else, let one of the ones behind you sort of, because basically you're trailblazing.
Yeah.
And being keen as mustard, I again ignored that good advice. And all I remember is going to the final checkpoint, and then next thing I'm in a helicopter. I woke up in a helicopter, and I'm in the sick bay, and came up to me in the sick bay and went, sorry, but because I thought, this will be my gypsies, my gypsies warning, and he said that we've just had a chat with the medical people. I'm sure they've got a thing against me, but they said, listen, because you went down pretty badly, hypothermia and exhaustion and all that sort of thing. We're going to recommend that you come off. And honestly, it's the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I had a chat with the DS who was at that last checkpoint, and he said, yeah, what happened, Mick, was you came in, took your Bergen off, you then grabbed my Bergen and ran in the opposite direction to where you should have been going. And that's when we knew we had a problem. So they rugby tackled me, and I'm completely out of it. So they brought the helicopter in, and I woke up actually in the helicopter.
In the helicopter,
yeah. Yeah, bizarre feeling. So I ended up gutted, going all the way back up to Arbroath, just thinking that the world had collapsed. Yeah. It's just such a horrible feeling, failing selection, because you think that that's it, that's me sort of finished. So went back to Arbroath, and lucky enough, I suppose, but I actually met my future wife, because I was every intention of going straight back on the next selection, which was a summer course. Well, I met Kim, who and to be honest, I've never really had a girlfriend up until I met Kim, because I wasn't interested.
Yeah,
it was what I mean,
soldiering and doing your thing. Yeah,
no front teeth, drinking, fighting, all that sort of stuff. As squaddies do,
Yeah.
Anyway, I met Kim, got some teeth, just to try and impress her. And we ended up getting married and having 4 fantastic kids. So was it the right thing to do? Absolutely. Concentrate. Selection's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Meeting the right woman is never always going to be there.
Nope, not guaranteed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I put the selection off for a couple of years, and then we got married. Had my eldest lad, Connor. He was literally 3 weeks old.
Yeah.
And we were down in Plymouth at this time, because what had happened was I got asked to go down as one of the instructors on the All Arms Commando course.
Yeah.
Which was great because it kept you fit. People that don't know Plymouth is actually quite a hilly location.
Right.
And where the All Arms Commando course is being run, was at a camp, which was in a really hilly area. So it really kept your fitness levels up. So I used that really as my grounding to go back onto to selection. So Connor was born down in Plymouth, so he hates to be told it, but he's a Janner. He was born in Plymouth. 3 weeks old, and then off I went on selection, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then the next time I saw him, he was 6 months old.
Wow.
Bizarre.
So you did all right on this. You got through.
Yeah.
Was it winter or summer?
No, a winter course again.
Another winter one.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The reason I like winter courses is map reading. Plus, also you can warm up pretty quick. Whereas if you're too hot,
I'm the same. I did a winter course, picked a winter course deliberately as well because I thought, exactly that. When it's hot, you can't always cool yourself down, but when you're cold, you can always make yourself warm, can't you?
Yeah,
I mean, I preferred that environment to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was lucky enough, I suppose, that I got to test week because you know what it's like. Test week you've got to get the start of test week with no injuries, no sort of tweaks and stuff like that. Was lucky enough, and I was actually I was shifting. I'd peaked perfectly at the right time, and there was a guy from 264, me and him, a guy called Laycock, and we were racing each other, seeing who can get the fastest times.
Yeah.
But also the DS picked up on this as well. So every time you get to a checkpoint, rather than us running down to them, they would run up to us and say the next checkpoint because they were obviously having bets.
Yeah.
Who's going to get in first? Who's going to get in quicker between these two? Little scam. Funny story. One of the DS had two dogs with him, two little Staffy Bull Terriers. And a helicopter came in and they obviously pooped their pants and they just bomb bursted and ran away. And it was, as I was coming over a hill, I just recognised one of the dogs in the middle of nowhere. And I thought, that's dog. So I picked it up and stuck him on the top of the Bergen, as you do, and sort of ran down to the checkpoint and he was down there. And I sort of lifted the dog off. There's your dog, but it was just a bizarre, bizarre thing. And, deadpan, right, next checkpoint.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Cheers, mate. Just
and off you went, what I mean? And it was only a couple of years ago that we sort of reminded each other of it. Of this incident, but selection. So we managed to finish it and get through that. And they
So what year was this? 90, 91, 92?
It was 89.
89. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
89.
you joined straight to B Squadron.
Yeah. And again, so there's 4 of us went to B, and bizarrely 2 of us wanted to get a mountain troop. And which normally no one.
That's what I asked for mountain troop as well. Yeah, I asked because I'd skied I'd done so much skiing. I thought mountain troops for me, and I love the mountains. Do you know what I mean? So, but you're right. It wasn't what people because you're going to get another beast, and you're going up some big hills.
So 2 of us wanted to go to mountain troop. One wanted to go to air troop, and then the other lad wanted to go to boat troop. So I got dragged in first, and it was a sergeant major. Fantastic. Probably the best sergeant major ever that I've ever met. So laid back, so chilled out. But sat me down and went, right, Hawksy, where do you want to go? And I went, mountain troop, if possible, knowing full well that the other lad was an RAF regiment lad who was a climber.
Yeah.
So was being sort of groomed to go to mountain troop anyway.
Plus, you've got the commando badge. They're thinking boat troop, aren't they? No.
So we're, and that's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Sorry, but he's going, you're not. So I got dragged in first, and said, "Where do you want to go?" I went mountain troop. He went, are you real? Are you sure? I went, yeah. And he went, okay, mountain troop. Away you go. And so as I walked out, I looked over at the old lad and went, guess where you're going? You're not going to mountain troop because I've got it But both of us did get it.
Yeah.
We both ended up going to mountain troop. So mobility troop didn't get anyone.
Okay. Yeah. I think from what I've seen, if you're really dead keen on going somewhere, they probably won't stop you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's an entry skill.
Yeah.
So it's one of them, the squadrons are slightly different. Although I did ask for B Squadron, purely because I think B really because D at the time were very top heavy power edge, as you're aware.
D Company when I was there, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was like, yeah.
Whereas B and A, I suppose, were more easygoing, I suppose, more laid back, and it was more diverse.
Yeah.
And actually, Mountain Troop had a lot of green hatters. There was 3 or 4 from 5.9. There was me from 2.9.
Yeah.
We also had two ex-Royal Marines as well.
Okay.
Were there, so very Marine and green hatter, top heavy, which was great, because we had the same sort of lingo. And although we did lose that the bootneck sayings, wets and yomping and all that
left
sort
at the
of
door, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was great, and thoroughly enjoyed life with B Squadron. They were a fantastic squadron. Really chilled out, laid back. I just remember being on when we did the anti-terrorist team, and I decided that for this one I was going to do sniping because I'd done assaulting on one. And I just wanted to do something different. So we joined the sniper team, and we headed up going to Ross to do the Rangers down there.
Yeah.
And what I used to do was every time we went to Ross, I used to either run to Ross or run back from Ross, if that makes sense, just so that you're getting a bit of a... Because that's, we're all keen as mustard. It's quite a long run, I suppose, but...
it's a fair try.
Yeah,
it's not...
When we used to do it, the Horwithy Road, the back road.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, used to run down that way. So off we went. So, and at the time, there was a guy who was keen as mustard who was running the snipers training. Canadian guy. Anyway, so he was CRG, and he was in charge of the sniper. Keen as mustard, and so B Squadron turned up, and we had our sniper jackets, shorts, and our shades because it was sunny, and that was it. We're on the range, so we're going to chill out and put your jacket on to fire your weapon, and then as soon as and this guy turned up, and he had a ghillie suit on, cammed up to hell, looking at us in total disgust. Typical B Squadron, really chilled out. But that's the way B were. But when you're working, you're working. When you're not firing, you're chilling. At the back light. So it was good. Really enjoyed it. And then we got the likes of Billy Billingham joined us a couple of years later.
Yeah.
And they were really the first parachute regiment because we had Billy Billingham joined.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Rest in peace, all.
Yeah. Proper shame that.
Yeah, so they joined, and it was good because it was an influx of new blood that was coming in, and also I could then pass the radio on to someone else.
Yeah.
Your turn with the radio, if that makes sense.
You were still doing the old Morse code in them days as well, weren't you?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely.
Still doing the old.
Yeah. Well, within about a month of joining, we did a big exercise down in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Being the new boy, radio.
There you go. Yeah.
And because you'd just come off the signals course, you were, better than most. But when you hear the signals boys when they're tapping it out, and then you hear the regiment guys doing it, it's like us with boxing gloves on.
It's hilarious.
One word a minute. Realistically,
Oh.
But it was great. Had a great time, and for some bizarre reason, when we were in New Zealand, some bright spark decided that we B Squadron should take the New Zealand SAS and a rugby match, and they absolutely battered us.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
that's all they do. Well, not all they do, but from a kid, sport-wise, it's rugby, innit? That's
absolutely
all they know, innit? So they all know it inside out, don't they?
Yeah, and they absolutely battered us. And we had some really good players, and, all the other type of players out there. But they
a couple of big Fijians in the squadron, weren't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
There would have been a couple of big Fijians there who would have
Yeah.
obviously known their way around a rugby ball.
Oh, absolutely. and at the end of it, we just thought, why didn't we play but football?
Yeah, yeah. Even the playing field a little bit.
We might have won. You know, who the hell goes to New Zealand to take on the New Zealanders at rugby? You know, that bizarre one.
So operations-wise, you'd have been first Gulf War. Was that your first big shout?
It was, but we didn't, B Squadron, we didn't really get involved in it. So as an 8-man team, we got sent to the UAE on a team task, really. And really it was as a favour to the UAE government for letting us use their land bases. So obviously you had, D&G doing their thing, doing the proper stuff. Then you had B, and bear in mind that we'd literally just come off the anti-terrorist team. Yeah. So weren't in a real position to be doing that type of operation.
So you'd been black kit for... Because the rotation would have been black kit for at least 6 months, I suppose.
Well, it was when we did the 9-month rotation.
Right, okay. So, you've done a fair old time in black kit.
Absolutely. And realistically, you had G Squadron who had done all the build-up for... not G Squadron... it was G Squadron, so it was A and D that were doing that. And so you had G that had done all the build-up for desert warfare. And then when then they swapped over. And I think realistically, common sense should have been applied. Yeah. B Squadron should have been extended. And I know that would have been a kick in the teeth for B. Yeah. But to be honest, G were ready. They had all the kit and everything else. And that... there was just no rhyme or reason why B went out there. So we went out there, and because we were there, we were, I suppose the squadron were looking for jobs, trying to find something to do. So I was fortunate enough to have been sort of pushed away, and we were up with the UAE doing bodyguarding course for the UAE. People and stuff like that, which is actually quite interesting because I'd literally just done an Arabic course anyway, so it was a good way of consolidating the language skills and everything else. But it was a bit galling watching CNN and watching the A and D sort of
knowing guys are out there doing some
absolutely
decent stuff.
And we're sat in the officers' mess, watching it on CNN thing. But the CO actually came up just before the air war started. Yeah. The CO came up and put us out of our misery because we expected, to be honest, that when the ground war was going to start, we were going to get shipped straight up and be, sent to one of the squadrons. And he sat down and said, "Sorry, guys, but you're going nowhere purely because, we need to keep favour with the UAE government. So your task is going to run for the full 3 months, if that makes sense, yeah." So a bit of a sickener to be told that you ain't going to go any further forward than the UAE. So for me, as an 8-man team, and we had some quite high-powered individuals within that team, we were going nowhere, if that makes sense. And, and then obviously you got the patrols going out, Bravo 20, all that sort of thing. Yeah. But again, when you read into it, it was just trying to find jobs to do. Was it, were they there on the ground? Should they have been there? For me personally, no, they shouldn't have been. They were just sent out there just to find something to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we had who obviously got captured. No, he never got captured. He was the one
he's one that got away, wasn't he? He's one yeah.
So he then came through us. His legs were in a pretty bad way, but he came to us in the UAE really just as a bit of a recovery. Yeah. So he really told us his side of the story and stuff like that. But then the thought of some of our people missing in action. Where are they? How can we get them back? Yeah,
it's not nice.
No, absolutely. So, we were in a position where we couldn't really do anything, and it was really frustrating for us. I know A and D had a fantastic time. Not so much B. It just wasn't our time, if that makes sense.
No.
And I'm a big believer that G should have been the ones that should have been the 3rd Squadron by rights.
Yeah, no, you're probably right there. Yeah. But you know yourself, it can all depend on what Rupert's in what chair at what time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's what happens.
Well, I tell you what, common sense applied. I know Sierra Leone came up, But when you think it's B Squadron were on the standby squadron, and it was B Squadron's, but
that was the reverse,
yeah,
wasn't it?
absolutely.
So because we were current, we'd just come out of Kenya, we were training down there. They went, well, you might as well go because you're in Africa.
Yeah.
So that and that was, but really, the man upstairs was XD, wasn't he? So it's like, do you know what I mean?
But he, to be honest, we all agreed with it. If that makes sense, because it was the right call.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Because you just lost 2 people as well in Kenya.
Absolutely, which was
so Dee's morale was pretty low.
Yeah, it was horrendous.
And then suddenly you do Sierra Leone, admitted you lost, rest in peace. But you lost him. But the morale when you came back, your morale was up. So was it the right decision? Absolutely,
Absolutely,
it was the right.
100%
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
You're right. So you had it pretty rough, really, in the Gulf. I'm going to say Gulf War One. You had it. So you didn't have it all your own way. You deployed, but you didn't do what you wanted to do. When did you come back? What did you get up to when you got back?
Yeah, so it was then just climbing cadres, medical courses, all the sort of stuff to get you back at waiting for the next shooting match, and which just happened to be around the corner. But well, actually, before the Bosnia thing, I sat down and decided that I wanted to go to Northern Ireland again, quicker than waiting for the troop to come around. So I volunteered to do 14 int.
Sugar,
sugar, up sugar, and at the time, it wasn't the preferred option to people. Working with the geeks wasn't on everybody. It wasn't for everyone. In fact, purely because you had to do the course.
But some of the guys who've done that have been tremendous soldiers, as you know, and have absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it, haven't they? So
yeah, absolutely.
It wouldn't have been everybody's cup of tea. You get that? Do you know what I mean? But and
I think a lot of it is the stigma of having to work with the debt. But as I say to people, after me that went, listen, it's their toy. Just sit down, suck it up, and just get on with it.
It was the fact that not so much working with them, but you had to do their course.
Yeah,
didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there was sort of like that feeling that they always in a way played second fiddle, but for this one particular thing, they're the daddy. Do you know what I mean? They're the daddy.
And to be honest, regiment guys, when they volunteer to do that, you put yourself on a bit of a pedestal. Because we had a guy that failed. A few people failed surveillance because surveillance not for everyone. Yeah,
no,
because regiment guys can be a bit RoboCop-ish.
Yeah,
that's my target, and off I go. So if you failed surveillance, it wasn't a massive issue. But if you failed any of the other two, then it was a big, shooting, for instance, CQB or CTR. Now we had
the fieldcraft element of it on the CTR.
Yeah, because that's our.
You should be all over that. That's your bread and butter.
Bread and butter, mate.
Yeah.
But we actually had a lad who failed it twice from B Squadron, which didn't go down too well at all. And the reason being is, if you don't go down there and just shut your mouth and just get on with it.
Slice a humble pie for me, please.
Yeah. And this was a classic case where the individual didn't shut his mouth, try to play I'm in the regiment, so this is how we do it, and they just failed him. And then he went back 2 years later to do it again, failed it the second time, which was a bit of a no-no, In fact, I don't know anyone that has failed anything other than surveillance, apart from this lad.
Right.
If that makes sense. So you just suck it up. But once you get into you go and join your det, and I went to 9 det, and we had a fantastic tour. Then your personality really comes out. That was the course. Now I can get on with it. Now I actually thought I'd failed the course, because every time a target turned round, when we used to do the debriefs, it was Mick, I saw you, Mick. And I was like, hold on, am I the only one doing the course here or what? So when we got the debrief at the end, the training major, he said, right, how do you think you did, Mick? I went, well, I'm shocked. I said, I'm shocked and passed. He went, why? I went, well, I was getting blown every 2 minutes. The target was seeing me all the time. He went, yeah, don't worry about that. He said, that means that you're pretty keen to get stuck in.
You're doing this. You're on it all the time. You're
absolutely.
not sitting back. You're not staying out. You're doing it.
Yeah. And he said, there's some of these guys in here now, when they get over to Northern Ireland, if you're not getting stuck in Herefordshire, you ain't going to get stuck in the hard areas, And he said, that's why we passed you. He said, because we can rein you in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what did you do? A 2-year tour at that? 2-year tour in Northern Ireland on that?
No, it's so it's 2 years altogether. So 6 months doing the course and then 18 months doing your debt. And we had a really successful period of time. Had quite a lot of successes, which was good.
Is there anything publicly you could make? Anything that the public would know about?
Yeah. I mean, the IRA tried to stick a bomb in, and they were going to blow. They were going to blow with a pipe bomb. They were going to blow a police station.
Okay.
Another incident, which was just off the Shankill, and it was the police station that was in the Shankill.
Shankill Road. Oh yeah, I was going to say yeah. Yeah.
So they literally parked a vehicle, and they took the glass out, and they just had plastic, and it had these mortars. So just as I sort of drove in, they were sort of sprinting off down, and they'd put the. So we managed to stop that one. So we were really active and pretty full on. But I enjoyed it. I was in the helicopter quite a lot, purely because they didn't rein me in at all. Getting stuck in. But that's your bread and butter. That's why you want to get over there, like So right, can we get a walk past? And I'm there. D's there or Delta's there. Mate, where'd you come from? And off you're doing your walk past because that's what you want, like. Always remember the IRA were putting a pipe bomb together in a backyard in the Ardoyne, so quite a tight area to operate. And this was at 2:00 in the morning, and the army were told not to go in because we had to identify exactly what gun was being.
Yeah.
So a tout had let us know what was happening, but they didn't know the address. So we had a rough idea. So they asked for a walk past. So obviously I did the walk past. And you know what the army's like? The Green Army, they tend to get very nosy when they get told to keep out of an area.
Out of bounds area. Where's the first place you go when you're told it's out of bounds?
So this patrol, 2:00 in the morning, and my hair was quite long. It's probably the length it is now.
Yeah.
So hence the tell Jesus to get his hair cut or tell Custer to get his tash done. If that makes sense. But yeah, so I was walking down and I don't know, I just looked like a drug smuggler, I suppose. So this young lad pulled me over and thankfully in our license, the driving license that you hand over, you have the sort of little note on there, don't you, to say,
That's
listen,
right. Yeah.
I'm squadding. Bear in mind, I'm carrying a pistol type thing. Anyway, they pulled us over, and we were literally 2 doors away from
the pipe.
Yeah. Now, this young army patrol could have completely blown the operation, completely. But a young lad, and he must have been about 18, probably his first tour ever, pulled us over, and I was up against a wall, and I handed him my driving license. Fantastic. Give me a right hard time, push me about, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And off, he sent me on my way. If that didn't make a big deal out of it.
Deal, mate, as he would everybody else. Yeah.
So off we went. We managed to suss out what the address, which was brilliant. So the operation continued as it went. 2 days later, I was in Girdwood Barracks, getting ready for another operation. And this young lad walked past and he went, "Oh, it's you." And I went, anyway, there was a Sergeant Major who was behind him. So I called the Sergeant Major over and I said, "Listen, you want to make sure that this young lad gets a bit of a pat on the back because of his actions. The operation continued and didn't get blown, if that makes sense."
Yeah. No,
so
good.
yeah, if that makes sense. So, yeah,
I bet he remembers it. I bet that young lad. I bet that's in his after dinner, isn't it? It's got to be in it. Do you know what I mean? I see him.
But it was good. But I think in the last couple of months of Northern Ireland was when Bosnia was kicking off.
Yeah.
So I literally got back to the squadron, and the squadron had already deployed. We'd just taken over from A Squadron, I think it was, because D took over from us.
Yeah.
So I then got sent out to B Hatch and met up with Billy and a couple of other lads. And it was because I went out on my own. we flew into Split initially,
Yeah.
and then got on a local charter flight up to Zagreb because we were in Bihać. And then one of the lads sort of met us at Zagreb, and then we drove into Bihać.
So what sort of stuff were you doing there? Monitoring type stuff?
Yeah,
Was it?
we were liaison officers, as they call it, JCO, Joint Commission Observers, and we were called that really because they didn't want it to be known that the SAS were in town or whatever. But everybody knew that JCOs were regiment. It's just even though we and at the time it was UN. So our 6 months tour was half was UN and half of it was NATO.
Okay.
And literally overnight we just painted the vehicles from white to green. So while we were doing the UN bit, we were setting up meetings between General Dedarkovic, who was the 5 Corps general in Bihać. And bearing in mind that Bihać at the time, they'd held out against Serb forces. You know, they were an enclave, but they were actually holding their own. So they were a pretty hardcore bunch of blokes, the Muslims. So we noted pretty quickly that their frontline troops didn't wear any body armour and stuff like that. So we ditched ours. Because when you're, and a lot of people, you know, I was trying to explain this, that if you're liaising with frontline troops, you tend to dress the same as they're doing to keep the street.
It's a hearts and minds thing,
Yeah,
isn't it? It's like
absolutely.
levelling with a minute. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it was, the helmet was ditched. The blue body armour never even came out. Never even came out.
Horrendous.
That stuff. And we just used to get in there and mix up with them and stuff like that. And it worked really well. You know, we were doing quite a lot. However, one time it didn't work for us. So me and Billy and the other 2 lads, we'd set up a meeting between Dedarkovic and a general from the Serb army. And it was just outside a place called Sanski Mosque on the way to Prijedor at the no man's land.
Yeah.
And the 2 LI were out there supporting, and they had the warrior vehicles. So they'd literally put a warrior vehicle across the main road as the support. And me and Billy had set the meeting up, and then with the other 2 lads, and then me and Billy decided to go down and have a chat with the Serbs, because we'd been there the day before just to wreck it, as you do. Just make sure everything's okay. And when we had a chat with the frontline troops, the Serbian lads, they're really accommodating, nice lads, and we had the old Slivovic and
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So unbeknown to us, because the general was in town, their frontline troops were a bit more switched on, if that makes sense. So me and Billy, pistols on our hips, no berries, no. We didn't look like UN at all, but, you know, off we went, you know, let's have a quick chat. Got down there and to their front line, and they took us prisoner. And they I think we spooked them more than anything else, because they thought, you know, who the hell. But before we actually got there, we actually walked past the LI warrior who were about a kilometre down, and we said, listen, we're just going to go down for a chat, so, you know, no need to worry about anything. Got down there, they surrounded us, took our pistols. You know, you can't win a gunfight with a pistol.
No.
When there's 10 people with AKs there, like, you know. So took us into a little house by the side of the road. Bit of tactical questioning, I suppose. Took our maps off us. And
rough you up a little bit.
Yeah, not so much then. It was because they didn't really know us, so it was pushing about and, you know, being a certain, but certainly not roughing it, if that makes sense. So, anyway, so, and literally because I'd just got back from Northern Ireland, so, you know, I knew the score when it comes to tactical questioning and cover stories and stuff like that. So they took our maps off us. Thankfully, regiment mentality, the maps were clear. There was nothing on the maps. We both had notebooks, so they took the notebooks off us, and we had our UN ID cards, and there was one number out between the 2 of us, so we're pretty close. So they then decided to drive us all the way to Prijedor, which was about 30 odd kilometres, 45-minute drive, if that makes sense. So me and Billy were in the back of the vehicle, and in a small 4x4, and you had a major who was driving, and then the front passenger was quite a big burly lad, bigger than you, to be honest. Big burly lad, big long dark hair, carrying an AK. And so me and Billy were in the back, and we were, don't worry about it, mate, blah, 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 just chat, chit
Put it up or anything?
No, we were just free.
Hands free in the back.
Yeah. And anyway, so to make a point, this guy, this guy span round between me and Billy, cocked his AK, and I don't know if it was because of nerves, but me and Billy looked at each other and automatically thought, he should have had that cocked already. So we started laughing, which didn't go down very well at all.
Yeah.
So that really peeved that guy off somewhat. But anyway, he made the point for us was to shut up. So 45-minute drive to Prijedor, and it was good. It was interesting because we were identifying, tank movement and all the. So we were getting more out of it than they were getting.
You're just clocking.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the camp that they took us to in Prijedor was actually well known for. It's where the Serbs were doing a lot of bad things to the Muslims.
Yeah.
It was on the news where you had these really skinny, emancipated prisoners, and this was the camp that they took us to, if that makes sense. So quite a grim place to go. So we got taken into a big building, and I got dragged in first for interrogation. And I automatically just kicked back to Northern Ireland and sat down, and I went, listen, I said, I've literally been here 2 weeks. I said, and I'm just a driver. I know nothing. You ask me anything you want. I said, I don't know anything. So they tried to ask me a few questions, didn't have the answer, threw me out in disgust. So I got lobbed in the... Billy got dragged in. Now, Billy had been on Serbo-Croat course prior to deploying. So tried to speak a bit of the language. So they
must have thought he was further up the food chain then.
Yeah. They put 2 and 2 together and went, Thicky driver, this is the guy that we need to be given a... So Billy was in there about 45 minutes getting sort of interrogated. Then he got thrown out, and we were about 10 feet apart, so couldn't really talk. And they were, a couple of people with AKs, and one had a bayonet in his hand, walking up and down the corridors, trying to intimidation.
Yeah.
The odd sort of kick in the ankle and stuff like that. And then the door got open again, and then Billy got dragged back in again. And I was like, "Wow, phew, it's not me." So again, Billy went through this. Out he came. 10 minutes later, Billy back in again. Out 5 times. Billy got dragged in for interrogation. Anyway, we then ended up together, fairly close together, and sort of Billy leant across and, Mick, what did you tell him? I went, sorry, mate, I just said I'm the driver. Billy said, yeah, but I'm the driver. Snooze, you lose, Billy. So anyway, so by this time, they obviously realised that the other 2 lads realised that we were missing. So they contacted General Smith at the time, and the general sort of said, listen, go in, arrest the Serb general, give him a sat phone and tell him that we want Billy and Mick back ASP. Otherwise, he's going to be going to B Hatch. And the thought of a Serb general being dragged back to B Hatch, he absolutely pooped his pants. So got on his sat, but he actually had his own sat phone. He called and got us released basically. So we then got brought back to the little house, given our pistols, our everything else, and off we went. So not really a massive hard time. It wasn't, and at no stage did I think that they were going to shoot us, because why why would Serbs?
Yeah, there was no vested interest there in doing that sort of thing. But you might have got a little more of a beating than what you did, especially when you were taken in the first stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because
you never know. I got arrested in Afghanistan, taken for a small period of time or something, and you just don't know, do you?
No,
and it's an element. You know, recently I got taken in Poland, and you're like, just an element of not knowing, do you know what I mean? And thinking to yourself,
I think what helps is when there's two of you, because you can bounce off each other. And Billy's a great person for bouncing off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was going to say, Billy's a great friend of mine as well. If you're going to go down the range with someone, Billy's a great guy to take with you, do you know what I mean? He's a great guy. So.
It was, absolutely. And it was funny because literally I'd just been told that I'd been given the, is it QCB, Queen's Combination for Bravery for Ireland,
Right.
literally about 3 days before that incident. So as we were walking back, Billy said, "Hey, are we going to get kicked out because of this?" I went, "They're hardly likely to give me an award 1 minute and then kick us out the next." That makes sense. So anything. So once it got us released, we never made a song and dance about it. Nobody knew that me and Billy had been captured. The only people that knew were the other two people in the patrol, General Smith and the OC, Squadron Commander, were the only people that knew. So when Billy started, when he started out in his TV career, and he was on Who Dares Wins, and he mentioned on that he'd been through, been captured. A lot of people in B Squadron rang him up and went, "No, you haven't. Stop bullshitting.
You're bloating."
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, for the record, right, there we go. B Squadron, listen in.
and it was literally a case of, actually, ask Mick, you know what I mean? Because we have. We did get to, but we just didn't make a song and dance. And I mentioned this because my 3 boys are in the military.
That's the best way as well, to be honest, because you could potentially make your own mountain out of your own molehill, couldn't you? Do you know what I mean? And that ain't good, is it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we just, literally, it was just, just get on with it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? What did you do yesterday? Oh, yeah, we got cut. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, and off we went. But it was a really interesting. Funny thing is, 2 weeks later, we then it went from UN to NATO.
Yeah.
And so we ended up going to Prijedor. That was where we were going to be based. And the Serbs decided that they were going to give us an LO. To work with. So we pulled up and me and Billy jumped out the vehicle. Guess who the LO was? The major.
The major that had driven you down the thingy.
He absolutely pooped his pants when he saw me. And honest, he jumped in his vehicle, never saw him again.
Really?
That'll bring in another LO.
Wow, that's incredible. Absolutely. What are the chances?
But it was good. To be honest, I can honestly say that the 6 months that we spent in Bosnia was my best time in the regiment.
Okay.
Although Northern Ireland was great.
Yeah.
But I think because of the difficulties and the different aspects of working with 3 different forces, with the Croats as well, was actually quite different. And I was trying to explain to people why the SAS specifically are probably the number 1 tier 1 unit in the world.
Yeah.
And it's the diversity. So, because I look at it that I spent 6 months on the anti-terrorist team, and then you do 2 years undercover in Northern Ireland where your hair's really long. You come straight back off that. You're in Bosnia, doing...
Yeah, it was. There was definitely so much going on. And I mean, even now, and I don't know too much of what's going on now, and it wouldn't be right for me to talk about it, but I know they do a lot of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I know they go from here to there and there to here, and it's like they're all over the place all the time.
Absolutely. And it's that diversity that I think just puts them above... there's other good units out there, Death Force and stuff like that, and SEAL Team 6 and stuff, and other countries have got great Special Forces units. But it's just that diversity that you can grab a regiment guy and say, "Listen, this is where you're going to go.
Yeah.
Make it work.
Get on with it." Yeah.
And they do. You're fully aware of that.
And he doesn't need all the gear. He doesn't need all the... He'll just go and do what he's got to do.
Doesn't need a Rupert. Just get on. Just get on.
No one needs a Rupert.
No, my first 5 years in the regiment, we didn't have an officer.
Yeah.
And because no one passed. and no one wanted to get a man in troop. So, and it was great because the troop staffing ran the troop, like, you know, and it was the way it was then, like, you know, it was good. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So, yeah, so we finished with the Bosnia, and then my 2-year posting was due. So really, that was my time out the squadron after that, because my 2-year posting was in London.
Okay.
Working with MI5.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was. It was a bit of an eye opener. I wasn't too impressed with MI5, purely because you'd done the 18-month you'd done in Northern Ireland. I mean, you were following bad people in bad areas. So your third-party awareness was right up there.
Yeah, right up there.
Now we're following Russians in London.
Yeah.
And I had a bit of a set to. We got dragged in on a Sunday, and it was the Russians like to go to car boot sales. You know,
bizarre,
yeah.
isn't it?
And
More money than anybody else.
absolutely.
And you're at a car booty.
and the frustrating thing was MI5 put, you know, 2 teams following these diplomats around, and the thing that blew my head was they said, right, what we want you to do specifically is if they drop a can, if they've been drinking a can of Coke, we need to recover the can of Coke, because it may be a dead letter drop, something like that.
Okay.
So they said, right, any questions? So I put my hand up and went, yeah, just a quick one. I said, you know, we've just done Northern Ireland, following terrorists with AK-47s. Now I'm following Russians with a can of Coke. What the hell? So they then, because of my cynicism, I suppose, they then sent me across to the Northern Ireland desk.
Okay.
To work with them for 5 days, which was quite interesting. Interesting that some of the photographs that they've got were nowhere near as good as the photographs that we had across the water.
Mm.
And it just
Because in those
highlighted-
days it was still uprating films and all that sort of stuff, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Photos were hard to do. I mean, I only did it in the cop platoons, but photos were hard to generate.
Yeah,
Decent quality, three-quarter image size, whatever they
Yeah,
call it, was
absolutely.
hard to do, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, the course in itself, one of the difficulty was mastering the photography side of it, like,
Yeah.
you know, from helicopters, you know, if you were doing
Yeah.
a rural, and then getting back, and literally you had to get back and get all your photographs ready for a briefing that evening. And it got your skill level of camera work right up there.
Yeah.
Some people really excelled. I never. So some of the vehicles would have cameras fitted all over them. So they drive past and take a picture. My vehicle, nothing. Because you know, it was horses for courses.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
people
yeah.
were good at it. Some people were the techno side of people comes to the fore, I suppose, in Ireland. And then you've got grunts like myself who, you know, prefer just getting out and following people.
Yeah, would
so
sooner do it with a Mark 1 eyeball.
Yeah, so it was a good mix of a team, really. You know, you had some people that could do that, and some people that are better off.
But that's another thing about the regiment in particular, is that the diversity of guy that you get there, you do seem to box off every option that you need, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there's some people that can do every job really, really well. But there's, you know, other guys, and I've probably put myself in it, where you're good at one thing and maybe not as good as, you know, something else and whatever. And a lot of the regiment guys are like that. You know, they can fit in, they can do it. But there's some people that are really good at doing one thing, and the regiment's good at drawing the strength out of an individual.
Yeah.
You know, and getting them to be the force. Quite bizarre. I think I'd only been in the regiment about 2 years, and we were on the SP team, and they went, Mick, you're ex-artillery. Is there any chance tomorrow of going down to Larkhill and working on the Invatron, which was a simulation, you know, as if you're firing artillery rounds.
That's right.
When it comes out.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind that the Invatron in Larkhill is probably booked up 2 years in advance. So I went, yeah, let me see. So again, you know, you put your SAS sort of berry on. And I rang up. It was a major. So all of a sudden, from being a trooper, I was Sergeant Major.
Yeah.
Sergeant Major Hawkes here from B Squadron 22 SAS. Is there any chance that we can, desperately sorry, but, we've got an operation sort of ongoing. Anyway, we managed to blag it and get the next day on the Imatron, and they gave it to us all day. So we drove down there in the Range Rovers, jumped out. The major who was in charge of it, fantastic, individual, explained to us how it operates, and he said, "Listen, do you want me to leave an instructor to go through it?" And I went, "No." I said, "I think I remember, what I've done, and I'll just do it the way, because regiment guys are not going to, in reality, they're not going to bracket artillery rounds."
No.
So I said, "Listen." So I got all the guys together. I said, "Listen, realistically, let's play it how we would do on the battlefield, and that's an accurate 8-figure grid reference, a good direction. Let's get the rounds down.
Get
one
rounds on
round,
target,
5 for
yeah,
effect
yeah.
straight away. So 6 rounds coming down, and then and if you're slightly off, make a real bold adjustment, and then 5 for effect again, rather than trying to do the bracket." And it worked. The artillery thought we were mad. Why you can't? And we said, well, realistically, that's what we would be doing, And I tell you, again, the Royal School of Artillery, they're quite flexible. So when we were in the Falklands and we were doing danger close missions, there is a set standard of how you bring artillery rounds fairly close to frontline troops. In an environment like the Falklands, where it's hilly, rocks everywhere, all that procedure went out the window, and all we did was we just crept it back, and then just told the Marines that were in front of us, our rounds are coming down in about 30 seconds. Just getting your holes.
Make sure you got your lid on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you bring the rounds in fairly close, because we did 2 Sisters attack, and a lot of that was danger close missions. But bizarrely about so went down with 7 battery to the Falklands, but on the actual attacks, we couldn't use 7 battery guns, because the angle. So you had Mount Harriet that was being attacked, Mount Longdon being attacked, and 2 Sisters all going in at the same time. So we lost our battery, and we ended up using 8 battery, or Black 8 as they call them.
Mm.
I'll tell you what, for gunnery, I'll take my hat off, because the amount of rounds that they fired, and I did get a bit peeved with the Marines, because they were tending to use artillery a bit too much, like a machine gun post would open up, and they would want artillery rounds to take it out, and you're like that. Hold on, guys, how long is this conflict? Our next
this could
assault,
roll on and roll on and roll on, and
absolutely.
now you've wasted all that on a machine gunner, which really could have been
absolutely
dealt with another way. But
and I think 4-5, because we've done quite a good job with them really, on 2 Sisters, taking out all the main elements, because literally we'd adjusted all the guns 2 days before. And bizarrely, I didn't realise at the time, but we fired the first fire mission regiment in Angus since Korea.
Wow.
Didn't know that at the time until we'd finished it. So all 3 batteries were all firing on 2 Sisters. And then the CO came up on the radio and said, "Do you realise that's the first fire mission?" And it annoyed me in a way, because when we got back, every time we got a VIP to, "Mick, can you explain about, really?" Really? I'll talk
Leave
about
me
that.
alone. Leave me alone.
But it was interesting, and anyway, so Black 8 did it, and we understood why. So when they were firing the ammunition and it was coming in, most of it was high explosive, or delayed because of the bunkers.
Yeah.
But every now and then a smoke round would pop off, or an illuminating round would go off, which you hadn't asked for. But you totally ignored that, because you knew that down at the gun end, they were running short of ammunition. So they were just grabbing any.
Slinging
What's
anything
this?
at it.
Let's just get it in there, supporting what we were doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say, I know they.
And that's testament to how busy that gun line must have been as well. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
'Cause you're just going, right, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say not one single round, bear in mind, a lot of danger close on that, not one single round was out of place, if that makes sense. And that's fearsome gunnery, because this went on all night, if that makes sense. And then after it all calmed down, the Argies then started retreating, and we were just following them with the artillery rounds. And quite bizarrely, we would stonk a road, they would all bomb burst, and then they would come out of fascination. You'd see all these, having a look in there. So, repeat.
Yeah, drop them in again. That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy, isn't it?
And people...
I'd just want to just get away from that as far as I could, you know?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But people were saying afterwards, they were saying, "Oh, but how can you justify, people that are now retreating?" And you're like that. Well, hold on. Yes, they were retreating, but we were still at war.
Yeah.
Because our next objective after Two Sisters was going to be Sapper Hill.
Yeah.
Now, Sapper Hill was well dug in, flats. Would have taken quite a few casualties. So, worried about Argentinians that were retreating and we were stonking them with artillery, just, I don't lose any sleep over that at all, because they're still the enemy until they actually put the white flag out.
If they'd surrendered and it was over and they were running away, wrong 'un.
Yeah.
But if they're still in the game, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely.
And you're taking them out of the game.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is, isn't it?
But it was just bizarre, why would they do that? I mean, they didn't seem to learn the lesson, because it was all the way back to Stanley, which is good. But yeah, so my hat goes off really to the lads of 8 Battery who were on the gun end, because their gunnery skills was just phenomenal. Because it's always nice to use your own battery.
Yeah.
Sem Battery did all this, and but because of the trajectory of the mountain at the time, Sem Battery were. We couldn't use them, so we ended up using 8. So, but the gunnery was just brilliant, really, and even 4 or 5 Commando themselves were coming up at the end, going, "Flipping hell," blood. Yeah, absolutely. Because in a way, because I know the Paras went through a bit of a hard time, because they didn't really have the artillery support that they deserved, to be honest, because they had 4 field regiment, but they weren't as effective as 2-9. And the reason why, so in theory, when they did their attacks, they should have had much better artillery support. They had admitted they had a bit of naval support, because 148 Battery was supporting them, but they didn't really have the support that the Marines had, because all the Marines had obviously a battery of 2-9 Commando. But the other thing about 4-5 is, and I feel for them. So just before the Falklands, they lost 3 of their mortars, mortar guys on a training accident up at just outside Newcastle.
Okay.
On an exercise, and then we had the Falklands, and then unfortunately, so we were working with 2 MFCs, and they were best friends. One was best man at the other guy's wedding, really pally. And on Mount Kent, the mortars had to move to another location. So one of the guys was going to lead the mortars, and then the other guy was leading a wrecking patrol out. And they had a blue on blue. And the reason they had the blue on blue, so these 2 lads were talking to each other. The 2 MFCs were talking, and unbeknown to the guy who was leading the mortars, as he was walking up the front, he was walking with the radio saying, "Yep, everything's okay." And the guy said, "Listen, are you static, or are you tabbing at the moment?" He went, "Yeah, no, we're tabbing." Unbeknown that the mortars had stopped and had taken their kit off and were stood there. So the word got back was, "That's not the mortars. Let's take them on." And they lost five people.
Wow, that's a shame.
Devastating. And you could see when they were calling, the zap numbers come through. So this was on, Matt, you know what I mean?
worst thing in the world, and it waiting for those numbers to come in, and there's no winner, is there?
No,
but
absolutely.
You want to know who it is, and it's like
yeah,
every number that's called is a lose, 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 isn't it? It's just horrendous.
Absolutely. So
horrendous.
So really felt for 4 or 5 mortars because they were, you know, infantry units thrive off their mortars, and the mortars were just totally ineffective. One, because the base plate was getting sunk in too far, but then when they lost everyone, they just couldn't really use the mortars anymore. So so they tended to use the artillery. When we did the attack on Two Sisters, they were using artillery like they would use the mortars, but we didn't have that amount of ammunition. You know, and some of the danger close stuff was more mortar orientated than it was. So it was quite dodgy, but it worked out really well. Now about 4 months later, after the Falklands, I went down on a course to the School of Artillery, and we were doing danger close missions. And one of the guys said, "Right, you two, you've been to the Falklands. Can you explain how you did?" And we did. And they changed their procedure. And the School of Artillery, to change their procedure is quite a big thing.
Of course,
if that makes sense. And they did it because they didn't change it, you know, per se. They did it for environments like the Falklands.
So Mission Pacific, it changes. Yeah, especially when you can't get the
absolutely.
The bounce.
So it was good that they actually listened to people that had actually been there and done it.
Yeah.
And took our advice on it, like, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So take you back to the regiment. Did you get out after Bosnia? How long?
No, I did the MI5 thing, and then came back, and then I had literally my last 2 years. So I started running the CTR cell down at Pontralis. And then they lost a guy. The guy running the CQB had to be taken off. So the chief instructor said, "Mate, can you run the CQB cell?"
When was that?
It was 98. And it's me we ran it, and we both arrived.
Yeah.
So literally, I'd literally come off CQB, so we CTR, and they said, "Right, Mick, because you're the senior person, you run the cell for a year, and then stay on it, and then can run it for a year." But we were both there for the whole time. Because normally they stagger it. So you do 2 years, you do 1 year, and then you get a different instructor. But because we both came together at the same time. So I said, "Listen, I'll run it first and do all that." And it was good because the way the CQB cell at the time was running, they were running situation awareness training. It was actually really interesting. As if it was some of the stuff that we used to do in Northern Ireland years ago.
Yeah.
You know, like a guy popping out the top of being followed by a car and 2 IRA guys jump up with AKs out the sunroof. Now that happened years ago. Chances of that happening again are pretty remote. So we said, "Listen, let's get rid of all this and let's bring it up to date and change it." And they, who was the chief instructor, fantastic, because he had the flexibility to say, "Yeah, actually, we do need to change because the situational awareness training was actually quite tough going, because you did a basic package." Where you were getting the guys getting used to, walking into areas, and then when we did the advanced package where people were getting jumped and filled in and stuff like that, and they had to react to a different scenario, was quite an intense part of training. And I always tip my hat off to the attached ranks down at Pontralis, because they used to be the ones that used to get dobbed in to help us out.
Yeah.
And they used to get hurt, because you're talking guys who are armed fighting back, if that makes sense. And so
you've got to take it to a certain level for it to be realistic. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there was an incident where what we do is we film it on the range. And what we do, we actually film a shooting. So one of the guys gets shot accidentally, or so they think. And it's all staged. So we normally get a regiment guy who's on the course and call him in and say, listen, wear this blood bag. And when you all burst out of the car, just drop to the floor and burst your blood as if he's been accidentally shot. Now, none of the course know about this at all, but you're videoing it, and it's quite an interesting, when you're doing the debrief at the end, and you see how people are actually operating and what they're actually doing. It's a good learning lesson.
Yeah,
how to react under
YouTube
pressure.
gold, that would be as well, wouldn't it? Get your hands on that.
But bizarrely, the shock on their faces, because you have to run it how you would run it. So the ambulance comes in, and we obviously make sure that either me or the other guy is putting the pressure on the wound.
Yeah.
So everyone else thinks it's so. So we run it, and then right, everyone has to go in now, hand your weapons in. We're going to bring people in, write statements and everything else. So while they're writing the statements, the guy who's just been shot now walks in, and the shock on their faces.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
What the hell's going on here? And then you put the video on, and you go through it, and you say, listen, guys, under pressure now, you actually thought that was a real shooting. What were you doing? Why were you just walking up and down, and they just couldn't believe it.
Yeah. That's a great thing to debrief, isn't it? Because it's real, isn't it?
Well, another one as well, which came in, we were really lucky, because the CQB cell, you've seen it, it can be quite dodgy, quite dangerous, because you're trying to get young, or not so much young, but you're trying to get normal Green Army units up to an SES standard with the pistol.
Yeah.
So the learning curve, pistol-wise, is massive, if that makes sense.
And there's a big thing around pistols with the Green Army as well, isn't there? Or the whatever they want to call it, army. It's just, I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? As soon as you give someone a pistol, it's like it's a different deal.
Yeah, it's because it's very foreign to a lot of people.
It's more normal now, I think, because a lot more people get them nowadays, don't they? But before it was like the Browning, like who gets the Browning?
But on this one time, and what we do, we always used to video it. So we were doing a scene where it was two people were on the same side of the street fighting back. If that makes sense. Now, it can be quite dodgy, if that makes sense. If you just follow the training, it's pretty simple. But when you've got bullets flying over your head, people tend to do things slightly different. Now, we had an ex-paratrooper on the deck course and a female operator, and they were out and they were doing the withdraw from the contact, firing down one side of a street, if that makes sense. So obviously the front one was down and the rear person was above. They would check their weapon, they would run past, and you carried on that way, if that makes sense. And we were videoing it. Anyway, so and I'm really glad, and I'll tell you why it was good that we were videoing it. So this was quite early on in the course, first phase, so just getting them used to it. And we kept harping on that, this is not the place to switch off the range, because if you switch off on this range, you're going to kill someone. So you need to switch on. Even though we're pretty laid back up here, and chilled out, as soon as you draw that pistol, game on. So they, so the girl had identified to the paratrooper that she was coming back. She then stood up. He sort of checked his weapon. She ran past him. He then went down on one knee, started firing, as you do. So she was firing over the top of him.
Yeah.
Unbeknown to us, and I have no idea why, but he then decided to stand up without making eye contact or anything. And he had quite longish hair. And anyway, stood up. The bullet went through his hair, parted his hair. And we were like that. Oh, right, stop. Went back that afternoon, got the video out, and the video caught it perfectly because you slowed it down and how he survived, I have no idea. But I tell you what, for everybody else that was watching it, it was a lesson learned.
Yeah.
So easy, he could have easily a split second, her firing a split second later should have taken
he
his,
would have been up high enough for it to go
yeah,
through. That's just
taking his head off, like,
It's horrendous. Isn't it?
Yeah,
Don't even
absolutely.
thinking about it, is it?
And literally they were.
But some of those scenarios I was on the ranges, and I've been on them. They were tight when you were running down. You had to know, you had to turn into it and see every time, didn't you? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You couldn't afford to do nothing wrong on them,
No,
could you?
I mean, regiment guys, it's great because regiment guys they're more attuned to it, because you've done all the stuff
the
in the jungle
stuff as well. So the jungle stuff is really tight, and there's trees in the way. So you've got to be aware all the time, haven't you?
So all of a sudden you're getting these Green Army lads who come from all sorts of backgrounds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And trying to get them to at that level, quite difficult. And like I say, the learning curve's right up there. Some of the other thing that used to make me laugh, so the Ruperts that come through on the deck, they don't like to, everyone likes to keep their background secret.
Yeah.
And we understand that. So if we couldn't work out anyone's background, we used to go to the clerk. So, who's, and because we were instructors, they would tell us. Who's that? So we would drop it into a conversation. Oh, so how long have you been in the Royal Signals? And you could just see them, the blood. How did you know that?
Yeah.
So first thing we always used to do before the start of the course, who are the Ruperts? Tell me who the Ruperts are. Right, you got 4 Ruperts on this one, 4 officers. So so every time we needed the tea-urns, sandwiches, it was, Bob and Jim, can you go and pick the tea-urns up? Because you couldn't let on that you knew they were Ruperts.
Yeah.
And, but they clicked on after, hold on. It's the same 4 Ruperts getting all the crappy job. But for us, it was a good way of bringing them back down, because you can imagine cavalry officers that come.
Yeah.
They're used to being,
some of them have got Batman still, haven't they? Do you know what I mean? Everything's done for them. Shoelaces a lot. Do you know what I mean?
So it was good. And bearing in mind that these lads now were going to deploy, if they passed, they were going to deploy and go straight into a det where they're living with everybody. So there is no place for being a Rupert.
No.
Rupert, you know what I mean? You just get on with it. And I just found treating them like shit, if that makes any sense, was a good way of bringing them down to earth.
Yeah.
In a sort of nice way.
Yeah, you're bringing them into the fold without just having to stand them to and break them properly. Do you know what I mean? So.
And it's the same as when remember the paint pellets?
Yeah, the little simunition.
Yeah, it can be quite painful. So when we were doing stops, and it was always where the RA guy would stop the car, and you get the curts out, and you would just empty the curts. And they couldn't figure out why it was always the Rupert that stopped the car. Because at the end of it, they were black and blue. Because they were quite painful. But in a way, because I left in 2000. That was the finish of my tour, and in 2000, May 2000 was my time was up, and it was time to leave. And quite bizarrely, the RSM, as I was in the library reading up at Stirling Lines, and the RSM came up. Obviously, didn't know I was leaving, and suggested I get my haircut cut. And I'm like, that, are you real? I said, I'm leaving, in a week's time. Oh, flipping hell. Sorry. But the disappointing thing was, because I'd been out of B Squadron 4 years, I didn't realise that I was no longer administered by B Squadron. And I was actually administered by HQ.
HQ Squadron, yeah.
Yeah, so when you're doing all the leaving stuff, it was, although you had our leaving do was great, because there was 4 of us leaving at the same time, and it was in the sergeant's mess. Great time, getting it all squared away. But the administration side of it was all done by HQ, so meeting people that I've never seen before, any questions? Who the hell are you?
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a, but it was also not so much a shock, because you know what's coming, but once your time's up, and out the door you go. And I don't know if you had the same thing, but it was, you've done your time, you've done your best, away you go, and that's it, and so I had no inclination really to go to reunions and stuff like that. I've been to one reunion, but that was really because I was back because after the regiment I was lucky enough to get into corporate security, security manager here, there, and everywhere, all over for the next 22 years. But I was lucky enough, I suppose, that I was back in Hereford, and B Squadron had a reunion, and I thought, well, I'm here. It would be rude not to, I suppose.
Yeah, go and say hello.
But that's the only one I've ever been to,
Wow.
if that makes sense.
I don't see the necessity to be hanging around camp, do you know what I mean, unless you're LDET or something like that.
Absolutely.
You've done your bits, you've done your pieces, you're out of there,
Yeah.
It belongs to other people now, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And that was my thought. It was our era, great. Now it's the youngster, and it's quite ironic because the squadron sergeant major at the time was a young lad. So it was 15 years later. So I just joined the squadron as I was leaving, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And he was in mountain troop. He was now the sergeant major. So you got all these people, Fijians, all the old and bold from years ago, all the people that had been on the Iranian embassy type era. And this lad stood up in front of everyone and said, to be honest, guys, the guys that are going through training now are probably better trained now than they were in your era. And he says the reason being is the operations that they're having to do at the moment. And we all sort of looked at each other and went, that's a ballsy call. Depending on who you're talking to. But it was absolutely spot on. He was absolutely right.
But if you look at what the soldiers are up against today, technology that wasn't there when we were in, night is now day, no matter where you go on any battlefield, and no matter who you're up against, there's drones, there's all sorts going on now. So everything has to be up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The game's got to be up, doesn't it? It has to be up.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can you not? And things evolve, and there must be stuff now that they do that we wouldn't have even thought of.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So
because you notice that when you go on operations, you do that creeping excellence, isn't it? So how did B Squadron do? And so D's after us. So then, how many did they arrest?
But David Sterling, unrelenting pursuit of excellence. You don't just let it go because it was good. You try and improve on the next time, don't you? So that was
absolutely.
That's the whole deal, isn't it? You know what I mean?
The only reunion that we've kept our selection. So our selection did a 30th anniversary, and we're doing another one this year actually.
Yeah.
So we're going to another one.
Yeah.
So we're
both obviously same troopers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to do another one this year in June, I think it is. But we've lost a guy since who had illness. Forgot what his name is. Sad to say, but I forgot his name. But the last one we did was a quick, as you do, a quick tab up penny fan.
Yeah.
And it was red hot. It's the first time I've ever been on the fan where it's been nice and warm. Because
I went up there last year, right? And I never realised there was a little viewing platform thing that you can stand on and look all over. And I was like, where's that come? Stop at Jacob's Ladder, just on the thing there, and there's a little platform you can stand on. I've never been up there on a day where you can see stuff like that.
All I know is the way we go up is story arms and up you go, up the track.
Yeah.
Now, everyone starts over the other side, so you walk down the hill a bit, and it's like a motorway. It's going up, and you're like, what the hell? Right, no, we're not doing that. We're going back that way.
Back to the telephone box.
But we on the top, it was just, because it was nice and hot, there was so many people up there, it was unbelievable. So that you've got the 8 or 9 of us up there, and we wanted to get a picture, by the trig point, but there was about 30 people there stood, trying to, waiting to get there. So we thought, no, sod that. So I said, listen, what we'll do is we'll have a picture of everybody looking out. So it was just the back of their heads.
Yeah, nice.
And it was great because you could put that on social media.
Yeah.
Although it did, hey, is that blah blah stood in there? No. But it's good. So so on my wall, I've got the one where we're all looking at the camera.
Yeah.
But I've also got the one where everyone's looking out.
Nice.
And it was just that thought that this would go, and I put it on social media, LinkedIn, and it just took off. It just went viral.
Yeah, nice.
Because everybody likes an SAS story.
Yeah, of course it did.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
and it was good, but because there was no faces, it was all, and it was looking at, and you know what, over the Penny Fan, it's quite fantastic countryside.
That's beautiful.
And when the sun's behind you, it just looked really, really good, like, you know. So, it was great. It's so we've got another one this year coming up, and no doubt it'll be the same again. A quick run up the old Penny Fan. When I say a run up, a quick sort of stagger up and up you go.
You'll get up there. You'll be all right.
Yeah, and then a curry, a typical curry, and then the barrels on the lash.
Yeah, all still there, all still intact.
Yeah,
different faces.
Yeah.
Don't change that much, does it?
But I suppose the good thing about what the regiment taught me was going into Civvy Street is having to be quite flexible because, you know, everyone's got an edge about them, especially regiment guys. And I was fortunate enough to go straight into corporate security where you had to really dull that edge because you're talking with civvies, you're dealing with civvies all the time.
Yeah, it's a different deal, completely different. It's,
absolutely.
And you're right, you can't have that. You can't be chopping around, can you?
No,
You know what I mean? You gotta make it fit. You gotta make it fit the surrounding, don't you?
well, my first job was in Kazakhstan as a Western security manager for a multinational company. Quite lucky to get the job, I suppose. And the reason I got the job was there were 6 of us that were put in for it, and we all had to go out for a week at a time, one at a time, to Kazakhstan and write a report, a security assessment. Now, I literally just left the regiment, so I knew nothing. So I was the last one to go, and I'm competing against officers, people that have been out quite a while. So they all had their, you know, templates and everything else. So I was the last one to go. So I got out there, you know, but being typical regiment, first thing I did was socialise with the people that you're going to be working with. Took them all out for a meal, had a few drinks with them, asked them what were their what are the security problems that you've got, and then wrote the worst report you can imagine out of all of them. So the way they picked the person that they wanted, because they originally wanted 2 people to go back to back, they only wanted one person, and it was the person that took them out for a meal, because all the other 5 totally ignored the hearts and minds side of it. And they sort of totally ignored that. And what they did was they just got on and did a fantastic report. But when it come down to it, they say, right, you've had the 6 guys now. Who do you want? Mick.
Yeah. Well, the hearts and minds thing. You're 100% right.
Absolutely. So I managed to get the job and spent 4.5 years out there in Kazakhstan. But 9/11, here we go. So 9/11 kicked off. And a week later, I was flying back from the UK in a charter flight that went from Stansted to Milan to Kazakhstan. Now, unbeknown to us, we cut the corner of Russian airspace, and I looked out the window. There was 2 MiGs on our wing, and I was like, "That, what the hell?" And all I had in the back of my mind was Sakhalin Island, when they'd shot down the Japanese 747. So, I was getting a bit worried about this. So we got forced into Moscow. So they force landed into Moscow, all got taken off the aircraft. Not arrested, but we were put in an isolated area, if that makes sense, until the aircraft itself got, the Russians took it, because we violated their airspace, so it was the charter company's fault, really. And then we then got another charter flight down to a place called Samara in southern Russia. And then from Samara we got coaches into, which was good. I'm glad it happened going in, because it added another 2 days onto our, because at the time I was doing 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Which is quite a long,
it's quite intense.
So when you're leaving, you want to make most of your 2 weeks off, if that makes sense. So,
of course.
Yeah, it was quite bizarre, and working with the KNB or the old KGB as well.
That must have been quite an eye opener.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. Just before, right? So just before I got the Kazakhstan job, I did a quick bodyguarding job, I suppose. With the Aga Khan, and he.
I've done some stuff with him. I did out at his place in Chantilly.
Yeah, right.
I was on the boy. I was on the lad. Yeah.
Right. So
I've done that.
Well, at the time, he because he's the leader of the Ismail sect, so he ended up going to Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. And anyway, we were given I was given 5 other boys to work with us, and I had no idea who they were. First thing we did when we went on the ranges, and a guy didn't even know he didn't have a firing pin, so that started to get the old red flags going. So in the end, I thought, right, what I'll do is I'll do one-on-one with him, because it was working with presidents, and we didn't want to look too crappy. And then the rest of them were the hotel support team, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I did one-on-one, which was fine. But so going into presidential meetings, because what he was doing was handing over $250,000 to build as a sort of gift, because he wanted the 3 countries to build a faculty of this Central Asian University.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Tajikistan was a bit weird, because we had to go across the Afghan border to do a meeting with one of the Ismail leaders, who I didn't know at the time was Masood.
Yeah. Wow.
Bizarre. I didn't realise at the time, because he was quite an impressive individual.
Masood was, yeah. Masood, he was the Panjshir Valley guy.
Yeah,
He was,
absolutely.
Yeah. He was.
But when I went to Afghanistan a few years later, the driver, when he picked me up, had a picture of Masood in his window, and I went, I met him. And he went, what? And I said, yeah, I met him across the border. And
I've been to his house in the Panjshir Valley. I've been to his house.
Oh,
Yeah,
right,
but
okay.
he was dead when I got there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it was he got killed 2 days before 9/11.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
assassinated.
Yeah.
So quite an interesting job. So the Kazakhstan thing came well. So a week after I got the Kazakhstan proper job, there was a presidential visit, and so Mick, can you? I went, yeah, no problem. I've worked with and they went, you worked with them before? I went, yeah, no problem. So it was working with the KMB, the old KGB, I suppose. But they couldn't believe that this new guy had come in and was able to deal with the presidential KMB and their security team.
Yeah.
Because we'd already been working together, a couple of months beforehand, So because it went swimmingly well, they gave me a month's bonus wages, which is good, as in the company that I was working with.
The Aga Khan or the
No. The Aga Khan was just a quick.
Okay.
That was just a quick 10-day job.
Oh, okay. Right.
Flying around. So it was just me doing it, and then finished.
Yeah.
And then got the job in Kazakhstan.
Oh, yeah.
So so it was with the Aga Khan, it was just meeting these things, and then off, and then the Kazakhstan job. Then we had the presidential thing, and in the 4.5 years that we did, we ended up doing 3 presidential visits. British Gas were part of the consortium, and the head of British Gas came over, and he was having to meet quite senior people in the capital, Astana, at the time.
Okay.
And BG British Gas said, "Can we borrow Mick?" I was doing a bit of bodyguarding. Yeah, okay then. So they dropped us off. So on the way back, they said, "Oh, mate, do you want dropping off?" Private jet. We'll stop off, and it just felt like royalty. Okay. But bizarrely, my bag, I had a bag with me, and it got absolutely trashed on a private jet, purely because the Kazakhs, obviously, because a private jet had come in, they obviously thought it must be worth a lot of money, and try to break into it.
We'll have a bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I love Kazakhstan, but the corruption is pretty rife, if that makes sense, and it really set myself up. Really, I ended up 6 years in Nigeria, which again was quite interesting, working for a company called SBM Offshore.
Okay.
So I ended up.
Was that on the oil rigs and that? Was
no. So SBM Offshore, what they do is they build floating platforms. So they they get old tankers and they convert them into floating platforms, so that other ships come in, they hook up to it, and the buoy side of it is they have a buoy in front of it, so the ships hook up to the buoy, and then the oil or whatever gets sucked in, and they offload.
That's right, because they put them onto smaller ships to get it in, don't they?
Yeah.
I've been on feeder ships out in that way myself, you know what I mean? And then they put it on, take it in, wouldn't they? Because they couldn't get it on the big ones.
So I got the chance to join this company, and at the time it was as the regional HSSE manager, because I've got a safety diploma. I'm not a safety guy, but because of in the gas and oil industry, it's quite knowledgeable to understand what the safety lot are talking about, because they are quite a bizarre breed, I suppose. So I got offered this job, and it was on the back of. At the time, the guy who was running security was an old BBC safety guy called Rob Todd. And he, safety background, no security background whatsoever, but he worked for the BBC. And at the time, I was looking after a BBC reporter in Belgrade who'd been threatened by the mafia, I suppose, criminals. So I got sent over there to really get her off the street and look after her. Now, she only had 2 weeks left of her assignment before she was going to come back. The locals wanted her to go straight away. But when we sat down with her, we said, listen, you're not in... Because we actually went to the mafia and spoke to them and said, what's the issue here? And it was her making a bit of a drama out of nothing. Because the mafia lad said, listen, we're not going to harm her. We're not going to... Because it was just after the Arkan assassination. So everyone was a bit worried. Plus also you'd had the NATO attacks in Belgrade as well. And that's what the BBC reporter was doing. She was reporting on that. So we managed to calm it all down. And basically I just took a bed in her apartment and just shadowed her around everywhere. I wasn't right on her. Just give her a bit of freedom. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. Just so that she knew that you were there, if that makes sense. But she heard me. I was on the sat phone back to UK saying, "Yeah, actually, this is more babysitting." She heard me. babysitting. Anyway, so 2 days later, we all finished and they all came back. She's called Jackie Rowland, if that makes sense. Quite. So that was interesting. But that told me never to do bodyguarding ever again, because they always say that if you're not willing to take a bullet for someone, you're in the wrong trade. And I was like that. A reporter? No.
I have. I used to call it hobby guarding because I did a few bands, but I only ever did bands that I liked, so I could go to the gigs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I did Kazakhstan. I did a few big bands. You know what I mean? But I'd only ever take the job if it was someone I liked.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, it was like, no, not interested in that. Do you know what I mean?
Funny old story. So while I was on holiday, actually, so I was still in the regiment, and if I was to mention this now, so I decided my ex-wife Kim, she was pregnant with my daughter at the time, so I then decided to do a sort of off-the-cuff bodyguard job down in the south of France. And it was with a Saudi prince who lived in Egypt, in Cairo. And this is the final nail in the head, really, for my... So he was okay, but his entourage were a pain in the backside. And we went to a place called Moulin Rouge Bar in Saint-Tropez, right on the and they were all sipping pink champagne, and it was me and another lad who were supposed to be looking after him, So we've got our swim trunks on, because, fitting in.
Yeah.
But we could just see, and what they were doing, they were getting absolutely shit-faced on pink champagne and being a bit loud and a bit noisy. And the prince was he was getting egged on by everyone else, but they were trying to cause a fight, knowing that he's got two lads there to step in, if that makes sense. Anyway, so the Saudi prince went to the toilet. He staggered to the toilet, so I followed him in there, grabbed hold of him and said, listen, you get yourself in a fight now because you're drinking alcohol. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to let them batter you. Let that be a warning. Came out and anyway, so we put in a complaint. Put in a complaint that so that went against me. But they said, listen, we can't get rid of Mick because he's running it. Okay then. So literally 2 days later, we were shopping in Cannes, and this is how rich he was. He took the top floor of the Carlton Hotel, the whole floor.
Yeah. The money's on another level.
Absolutely.
It's ridiculous.
So he then wanted to go shopping, and this, that, the other. So they went shopping, and again it's his entourage. So I was stood on the opposite side of the road, just keeping an eye out, what's going on there, just not getting in their face and everything else. And this guy walked up, the entourage, with a big plastic bag, and he put it at my feet, something like that. Anyway, he wandered off and he went off shopping again. So they then decided to start walking down the street. So I, as you do, stepped over the bag, left it there, whistled over at his entourage and went, "Hey, you forgot your bag." So that was another black mark against me. So another complaint went in. So at the end of the task, so we got these 2 black marks. Mick's not being very nice, to us. So at the end of it, they wanted 2 people to go to. He wanted 2 people to go to Egypt with him to do a security assessment, and reluctantly they had to take me because I was the only one that could write us a report, So they took me on that. But at the end, and they paid us really well. So I gave it all to my Kim, because she complained about me being away. You're on leave and you're 10 days in the south of France and then Cairo. And I said, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, lovely. Well done. When's the next one? So, yeah, no, it was interesting, if that makes sense. But it just taught me that it not for me. It's just, it's funny because I started running BP's AGM, doing all the bodyguarding for it. But it was organising it and actually doing it slightly different.
Yeah.
And what we did was we needed 26 bodyguards to cover the BP AGM. But the company that were organising it had 4 days to plan it. So we all turned up on a Monday morning, and then Thursday was the AGM, and then Thursday night was a big Yahoo piss-up, and then Friday off you went. Now, they were paying me $4,000 for 4 days' work, if that makes sense. And then all the bodyguards were getting paid £1,000. So what I did was I thought, this would be a brilliant job for the regiment lads who were on the SP team, just to see how civvies do it.
Come down and have a butcher's, yeah.
And so for 6 years on the trot, we used to ring the RSM up and say, listen, have you got 6 spare people that want to earn £1,000? Free hotel, free food, and a massive free piss-up at the end of it. So loads of volunteers wanted to, and it was
absolutely.
great. You know what I mean? Coming down it, and it was good bit of work experience for them, I suppose. It wasn't taxed in. It was just following. And at the time, BP had Sir Lord Brown was the guy running it. So we always put the best person. We'd get Lord Brown, if that makes sense. So and it was good, but but it was planning it, and it was all about the build up to it, and it was really professionally done by the organisation. But it was a bit too long, to be honest. 4 days to do 1 day at an AGM, and there was never any dramas. But it was great for the bodyguards, because they were doing their little thing.
Pocket, especially for the serving lads. That's a great thing to do, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And you're right. I think when you're in, I've always said your rehabilitation at the Civvy Street should start on the day you join.
Yeah.
You should always have sort of like 1 foot where you go, do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing about Civvy Street when I got out. Nothing at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing. Never been round them, never said. I'm like, what are you? Do you know, what are you?
But it was good because we used to do so we did the briefing the night before, and everybody remembers it, but it was always a thing of a case of right questions or no any non-bone questions.
Yeah, non-bone. Yeah.
Which always sort of came out. There's a guy called Richard H. Who went on to write all these bodyguarding books and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He'd literally just left the military when he came in and done all that as well, like, you know. So
talking books, you've got one coming out, haven't you?
yeah. Well, it's sad to say, but it's written by it's co-written. So the co-writer is a girl called Nicole Johnson, who unfortunately passed away on Saturday after a long illness. And I got to know Nicole. She's Australian. She's left wing. She's a feminist. She's not the person to write an ex-SAS book at all. But I didn't know her background. All I picked up on was that she was a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn. So I got in touch with her, and she used to work for Gordon Brown as in communications. So very very left wing, very Labour. And so when we met up, the meeting was all about her telling me to bog off. You've got the wrong person. But the meeting went when I explained how I wanted the book to go, and I didn't want a Bravo 20. I wanted a book. It's a life story, but I wanted the book to reflect on the difficulties you have in life, like not being picked for Lincoln City, breaking your ankle, and all this sort of thing.
So learning, taking the positives from the negatives and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And she loved it. She absolutely loved it. She liked that way of because she was expecting guns, bombs, and all this sort of thing. So at the end of it, she went, "Mick, I'm really interested. I would actually like to do this book for you." She says, "However, it would be very unprofessional of me not to suggest better people." So she gave me a list of 5 people who had already written books by regiment lads and stuff like that. And literally it took me 30 seconds to say, not interested. I said, purely because of your reaction to what I've just told you speaks volumes about, how I wanted to go.
You get to know your ghostwriter very well, don't you? Because you're going to lay everything you've done out on the floor like that, and they're going to go, right, this, that, and the other.
I'll tell you what, it was actually quite emotional because, I was married for 30 years and then we split up. Nothing untoward. It was an amicable. Yeah. But it's just when you're away all the time, you do drift apart somewhat. So I was finding, because I was living in Monaco at the time, I was finding that when I was coming home, my wife and daughter were planning holidays, and I was doggy sitting because we have 4 dogs, and because we used to live out at Bredwardine. So I was coming back, and they were going on holiday, and I was happy to just because I'd just come back from Monaco. So you're going to enjoy yourselves, but in a way that we were drifting further and further apart.
Even further, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So we decided on this amicable split. So when we were discussing the book and going through everything, that part of it was actually quite difficult because as you say, you're laying your heart and soul to a person you don't really know.
To do anything like this properly, it's why I talk about the abuse, the sexual abuse in my life, because to do it properly, you've got to lay it all out. Yeah. Otherwise, people will never understand the man or the person behind what you're trying to teach them or what you're trying to tell them.
Absolutely. And she hit it. She was really, really good. Because we used to have 3-4 hour sessions, a bit like this, talking away. Yeah. She would record everything. She would write everything down. She would write a chapter and then she would fire it back to me to make sure that it read right, and especially the military terms.
It's the military terms, and also like my ghost Damien would write it in like Oxford English.
Is it Damien Lewis?
Yeah.
He was one of the guys that she actually put on there.
So Damien would send it back to me, and I'd like red pen it as if to go, no, you'd say ain't, not isn't. Yeah. And you can imagine my English teacher going, no. You say, no, you do it like this.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But it resonated through.
Yeah.
My people who read it said I could almost listen to you saying that.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. And
that's how it has to be.
And that's how she wanted it to come across. Yes, she's writing it, but she says it's got to be you.
Yeah. And a good ghost will do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got down to so she finished it, we got it all together, and then she went down with a real bad illness about last July. So it was just before the book was due to go to publisher, if that makes sense. And it's called Living Life on the Edge.
Yeah.
Just got a publisher, and then she went down really badly. Me and my daughter actually met up with her before she got the illness because me and my daughter were teaching school kids at a private school in London. So finished that, and they lived fairly close by. So we went round and actually, it's the first time we met up with her. So spent a year doing this type of thing, heart and soul, everything else. So it was good to, and we met up with Chris, her husband, as well, which is good. But unfortunately, she was really poorly, and we thought we'd actually lost her over Christmas because she had a real bad turn. Then she perked up, and I literally spoke to her about a week ago, and I was driving up to Yorkshire, but I couldn't really understand her because she was, obviously not feeling very well. And then Chris gave me the message on last Thursday that she was really poorly, and could I speak on the phone, and he'll put the phone to her ear, which I found quite hard to do, if that makes sense. And then unfortunately at 3:45 on Saturday afternoon, she passed away.
Wow.
Yesterday I spoke to her mum because her mum came over and is feeling really, because she's Australian. And has been feeling really down. So Chris, her husband, said, "Mick, can you ring her up and just try and perk her up somewhat?" Because I'm on social media, on LinkedIn, and I've been putting quite a few posts on there about her passing, because she's a fantastic individual. So what we're hoping to do is get the book published, but in honour of Nicole Johnson, the co-writer. If that makes sense.
Well, listen, Mick, we will certainly help you push that here. We'll certainly, in honour of her and in honour of you, indeed. We'd love to help you push that here. We'll definitely help you get it out there on our platforms as well.
I'll tell you what's funny. So when I did a couple of podcasts, some people said to me, this is before they knew that Nicole was ill. Said, let's get your book pushed. My thought at the time was, because she's done all the work, because it's her heart and soul, I didn't want it published until she was ready, and because then we did it together.
Yeah. I'll totally get that. Yeah. I'll totally get that.
But now she's passed. I think in honour, really, it'd be good to get it. Yeah, but it would be good to get it published. But she also did some cozy, because she does a lot of she writes thrillers, and she came up with a story about an SAS guy and his daughter called Mick and Keeley, who live at Winferton, shock horror, in Herefordshire. And she came up with these real quick stories. And she the plan was to do 9 books and get a series together, and maybe sell it on to one of the TV companies, if that makes sense. But she bashed out 3 before she got really ill, So I think that's another avenue that may be worth pursuing.
Definitely worth a look. There'll be no shortage of writers would pick up the mantle on something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you could get it going, obviously the thing's done in
absolutely.
It's done in her honour, isn't it?
Again? So absolutely. And because I think her and because they've been through a year now of all this sort of trauma and everything else, I think it'd be very befitting for them, just to get it done, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, no, it'd be nice. Any help we can give you with promoting that when it comes.
Yeah, much appreciated.
We'll obviously do our best here.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Mick, we're gonna have to. We've been chatting now for a good old long time here, so
You know?
We have. I'm living at the bud. What I would like to say is, look, you're on a journey. We're on a journey. We'd like you to be part of our journey. If
Absolutely.
be part of yours, that'd be absolutely superb.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been fantastic to talk to you.
Yeah.
I'd like to get you in again at some stage, actually, and talk about the civvy circuit a little bit more in detail. But listen, been a pleasure having you here.
No,
it really has.
No,
all right, mate.
No, much appreciated. Thanks for the invite. Yeah.
Awesome job.
Thanks, buddy.